वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा गुणान्वितं तं सजीवं साधवैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादं सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितां नमामि विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी विचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनामिने विषये नमः हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त श्रीराधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी श्रीराधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिः नीलाचलनिवासाय नित्याय परमात्मने बलभद्र सुभद्राभ्यां श्रीजगन्नाथाय ते नमः वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीननाथं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्यमीश्वरम्. Today we are going to discuss on Isopanishad verse 13. अन्यादेवाहो सम्भवात् अन्यादावुरसम्भवात् इति शुश्रुमाधीराणाम् येनस्तद्विचक्षिरे. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. All this is heard from undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. The system of hearing from undisturbed authorities is approved in this mantra. Unless one hears from a bona fide acharya who is never disturbed by the changes of the material world, one cannot have the real key to transcendental knowledge. The bona fide spiritual master, who has also heard the Shruti mantras or the Vedic knowledge from his undisturbed acharya, never presents anything that is not mentioned in the Vedic literature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said that those who worship the Pitaras or the forefathers attain the planets of the forefathers. That the gross materialists who make plans to remain here stay in this world, and that the devotees of the Lord who worship none but Lord Krishna, the supreme cause of all causes, reach him in the spiritual sky. Here also in Sri Isopanishad it is very familiar. that one achieves different results by different modes of worship. If we worship the Supreme God, we will certainly reach Him in His eternal abode. And if we worship the demigods, like the sun god or the moon god, we can reach their respective planets without doubt. And if we wish to remain on this wretched planet with our planning commissions and our stopgap political adjustments, we can certainly do that also. Nowhere in the authentic scriptures is it said that one will ultimately reach the same goal by doing anything or worshipping anyone. Such foolish theories are offered by self made spiritual masters who have no connection with the parampara, the bona fide system of disciplic succession. A bona fide spiritual master cannot say that all paths lead to the same goal and that anyone can attain this goal. The bona fide spiritual master cannot say that all paths lead to the same goal and that anyone can attain this goal by his own mode of worship of the demigods or of the supreme or whatever. Any common man can very easily understand that a person can reach his destination only when he has purchased a ticket for that destination. A person who has purchased a ticket to Calcutta can reach Calcutta but not Bombay. But the so called spiritual masters say that any and all the paths will take one to the supreme goal. Such mundane and compromising offers attract only foolish creatures who become puffed up with their manufactured methods of spiritual realization. The Vedic instructions, however, do not uphold them. Unless one has received knowledge from the bona fide spiritual master, who is in the recognized line of disciplic succession, one cannot have the real thing as it is. Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Evam parampara praptam ivam bhajase yoginam sakale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in the course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. When Lord Shri Krishna was present on this earth, the Bhakti Yoga principles defined in Bhagavad Gita had become distorted. Therefore, the Lord had to re-establish the disciplic system, beginning with Arjuna, who was the most confidential friend and devotee of the Lord. The Lord clearly told Arjuna in 4.3 that it was because Arjuna was his devotee and friend that he could understand the principles of Bhagavad Gita. In other words, only the Lord's devotee and friend can understand the Gita. This also means that only one who follows the path of Arjuna can understand the Bhagavad Gita. At the present moment, there are many interpreters and translators of this sublime dialogue who care nothing for Lord Krishna or Arjuna. Such interpreters explain the verses of the Gita in their own way and postulate all sorts of rubbish in the name of Gita. Such interpreters believe neither in Sri Krishna nor in his eternal abode. How can they explain the Bhagavad Gita then? Krishna clearly says that only those who have lost their sense worship the demigods for paltry rewards. This is Bhagavad Gita 7:20 and 7:23. Ultimately, he advises that one give up all other ways and modes of worship and fully surrender unto him. Only those who are cleansed of all sinful reactions can have such unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord. Others will continue hovering on the material platform with their paltry ways of worship, and thus will be misled from the real path under the false impression that all paths lead to the same goal. In this mantra of Sri Isopanishad, the word Sambhavat, the worship of the Supreme Cause, is very significant. That Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and everything that exists is emanated from him. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says in 10.8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante ma bhudabhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all the spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. Here is a correct description of the Supreme Lord given by the Lord Himself. The word Sarvasya Prabhava indicates that Krishna is the creator of everyone, including Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And because these three principal deities of the material world are created by the Lord is the creator of all that exists in the material and spiritual worlds. In the Atharva Veda, Gopal Tapani Upanishad, it is similarly said, He who existed, Lord, in the Atharva Veda, Gopal Tapani Upanishad, it is similarly said, He who existed before the creation of Brahma and who enlightened Brahma with Vedic knowledge is Lord Shri Krishna. Similarly, the Narayan Upanishad says, then the Supreme Person, Narayana, decided to create all the living beings. Thus, from Narayana, Brahma was born. Narayana created all the Prajapatis. Narayana created Indra. Narayana created the eight Vasus. Narayana created the 11 Rudras. Narayana created the 12 Adityas. Since Narayana is a plenary manifestation of Lord Krishna, Narayan and Krishna are one and the same. The Narayana Upanishad also states Devaki's son Krishna is the Supreme Lord. The identity of Narayana with the Supreme Cause has also been accepted and confirmed by Sripa Shankaracharya, even though Shankaracharya does not belong to the Vaishnava person list. The Atharva Veda, the Maha-Upanishad one, also states only Narayana existed in the beginning, when neither Brahma, nor Shiva, nor fire, nor water, nor star, nor sun, nor moon existed. The Lord does not remain alone, but creates as he desires. Krishna himself states in the Moksha Dharma, I created the Prajapatis and Rudras. They do not have complete knowledge of me because they are covered by my illusory energy. It is also stated in the Varaha Purana, Narayana is the supreme personality of God, and from him the four-headed Brahma was manifested, as well as Rudra, who later became omniscient. As all the Vedic literature confirms that Narayana, Krishna, is the God of all one. In the Brahma Samhita also, 5.1, it is said that the Supreme Lord is Sri Krishna, Govinda, the delighter of every living being, and the primeval cause of all causes. The really learned persons know this from evidence given by the great sages in the Vedas, and thus they decide to worship Lord Krishna as all in all. Such persons are called Buddha or really learned because they worship only Krishna. The conviction that Krishna is all in all is established when one hears the transcendental message from the undisturbed Acharya with faith and love. One who has no faith in or love for Lord Krishna cannot be convinced of this simple truth. So those who are faithless are described in Bhagavad Gita 9.11 as Mudas, fools or asses. It is said that the Mudas deride the personality of Godhead because they do not have complete knowledge of the from the undisturbed Acharya. One who is disturbed by the whirlpool of mental energy is not qualified to become an Acharya. Before hearing the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was disturbed by the material whirlpool, by his affection for his family, society, and community. But Arjuna wanted to become a philanthropic, non-violent man of the world. But when he became Buddha, by hearing the Vedic knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Person, he changed his decision, became a worshipper of Lord Shri Krishna, who had himself arranged the battle of Kurukshetra. Arjuna worshipped the Lord by fighting with his so-called relatives, and in this way he became a pure devotee of the Lord. Such accomplishments are possible only when one worships the real Krishna and not some fabricated Krishna invented by foolish men who are without knowledge of the intricacies of the science of Krishna, described in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. According to the Vedanta Sutra, the Sambhuta is the source of birth and sustenance, as well as the reservoir that remains after annihilation. This is Bhagavatam 1.1.1. The Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, maintains that the source of all emanations is not like a dead stone, but is Avijja, fully conscious. The primeval Lord Sri Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita 7.26 that he is fully conscious of past, present, and future, and that no one, including the demigods such as Shiva and Brahma, knows him fully. Certainly, half-educated spiritual leaders who are disturbed by the tides of material existence cannot know him fully. They try to make some compromise by making the mass of humanity the object of worship. But they do not know that such worship is only a myth because the masses are imperfect. The attempt by these so-called spiritual leaders is something like pouring water on the leaves of a tree instead of the root. The natural process is to pour water on the root. But such disturbed leaders are more attracted to the leaves than the roots. Despite their perpetually watering the leaves, however, everything dries up for want of nourishment. Shri Isopanishad advises us to pour water on the root, the source of all germination. Worship of the mass of humanity by rendering bodily service, which can never be perfect, is less important than service to the soul. The soul is a root that generates different types of bodies according to the law of karma. To serve human beings by medical aid, social help, educational facilities, while at the same time cutting the throats of poor animals in slaughterhouses, is no service at all to the soul, the living being. The living being is perpetually suffering in different types of bodies, from the material miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. The human form of life offers one a chance to get out of this entanglement. simply by re-establishing the lost relationship with the living entity and the Supreme Heart. The Lord comes personally to teach this philosophy of surrender into the Supreme, the Sambhuta. Real service to humanity is rendered when one teaches surrender to and worship of the Supreme Lord with full love and energy. That is the instruction of Sri Isopanishad in this one. A simple way to worship the Supreme Lord in this age of disturbance is to hear him chant about his great activities. The mental speculators, however, think that the activities of the Lord are imaginary, therefore they refrain from hearing of them and invent some word like jugglery without any substance to divert the attention of the innocent masses of people. Instead of hearing the activities of Lord Krishna, such pseudo spiritual masters advertise themselves by inducting their followers to sing about them. In modern times, the number of such pretenders has increased considerably, and it has become a problem for the pure devotees of the Lord to save the masses of people from the unholy propaganda that these pretenders and pseudo incarnations are doing. Upanishads indirectly draw our attention to the primeval Lord Sri Krishna, but the Bhagavad Gita, which is a summary of all Upanishads, directly points to Sri Krishna. Therefore, one should hear about Krishna as he is by hearing from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this way, one's mind will be gradually cleansed of all the contaminated things. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.17 says, by hearing of the activities of the Lord, the devotee draws the attention of the Lord. Thus, the Lord being situated in the heart of every living being, helps the devotee by giving him proper directions. The Bhagavad Gita 10.10 confirms this. Tadami buddhi yogam tam yena madhvayanti. The Lord's inner direction cleanses the devotee's heart of all contamination produced by the material modes of passion and ignorance. Non devotees are under the sway of passion and ignorance. One who is in passion cannot become detached from material hankering, and one who is in ignorance cannot know what he is or what the Lord is. Thus, when one is in passion or ignorance, there is no chance for self realization. However much one may play the part of a religionist, for a devotee, the modes of passion and ignorance are removed by the grace of the Lord. In this way, the devotee becomes situated in the quality of goodness, which is the sign of perfect command. Anyone can qualify as a Brahmana if he follows the path of devotional service under the guidance of bona fide spiritual master. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4a. Okay, 480. Virat Gunan Puddashan Abhidasham Vajavana Kasadaya Anya Papa Yadapashraya Shraya Shuddhyanti Tasmai Vishnuve Namaha. Any low-born person can be purified by the guidance of a pure devotee of the Lord. For the Lord is extraordinarily powerful. So when one attains Brahmanical qualifications, he becomes happy and enthusiastic to render devotional service to the Lord. Automatically, the science of God is unveiled before him. By knowing the science of God, one gradually becomes freed from all the material attachments, and one's doubtful mind becomes crystal clear by the grace of the Lord. One who maintains this stage is a liberated soul and can see the Lord in every step of life. This is the perfection of Sambhava as described in this mantra. As described in this mantra of Shri Anyadeva Sambhava, Anyat Ahur Asambhava, Iti Shushramadhira, Yena Stadvichachakshire. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worship what is not supreme. All this is heard from undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. Owing to our vision defect, we see spiritual practices and culture very shallow, and the material sense gratification and culture very deep. So when it comes to material sense pleasure, there is immediately excitement, there is commitment, and so on. Srila Prabhupada explains that the spiritual science, spiritual subject matter, can only be understood by one who is undisturbed by the moving and changing flux of this world. So it is said that different shloks for different folks. What does it mean? Yes, we observe and see that different people get excited by different kinds of slopes, different kinds of philosophies, different kinds of presentations of spiritual science. So, how does this attraction and commitment come about? That is an important subject matter to understand. So, because different people get excited or committed to different presentations or different philosophies, that doesn't mean anything one gets tuned to, everything one gets tuned to is okay. Just because something is exciting and appealing and another thing is not, that doesn't mean that what is exciting and appealing is the cutout for us. This mantra of Isopanishad 13 is speaking about this. That if one connects to the Supreme, a different result is obtained. But one connects to somebody who is not Supreme, and a completely different result will be obtained. One connects to Supreme, there is liberation, emancipation. One connects to that which is not Supreme, there will be frustration. Temptation, frustration. So the point is that people now, where lies where lies the issue? See, the main issue is what? The main issue is that what is appealing to us may not be good for us. A sense gratification is appealing to everyone, but that's not good for the person. Similarly, the Karmakanda sections do of the Vedas do recommend the sense gratification, to promote the sense gratification. So sense gratification is not of attachment, but it is not healthy for anybody. That is the point. So basically, it's like this. Now, what is the state of our consciousness that decides what kind of message we get fit to or what kind of message fits to us? Just like a screw and a thread, a particular screw will go inside only in a particular thread of the nut. If the thread is different, the screw is not going to go inside. So different the screw and the thread. So the nut will only go in the screw if there is a particular kind of thread, and if that thread matches. If the mismatch of the thread, it won't go inside. Similarly, we will see that our state of consciousness is basically determines what thread we have in our head, in our heart. And a particular philosophy is not having a different, having a particular thread. So when the net when the thread of the nut matches the screw, then only it goes inside. And that kind of philosophy is very appealing to us. Yeah, that kind of philosophy is very appealing for us. By conditional hearing, how can we have unconditional love and service? Yes. So therefore, the uh, some people are attracted by demigod worship. Some people are attracted by impersonal worship, because they have a different thread, they have a different screw cut and thread. So only that particular philosophy fits in. Although now the point is that although that particular philosophy fits in well, but it doesn't take one anywhere auspicious. It simply reinforces that conditioning. Simply, it doesn't take one anywhere. It simply reinforces that conditioning. That's all. So that is why one has to be very, very careful what one is following. Now, Miss, okay, so if only the Amal Puran, the pure devotional service is the only lofty thing, is the only true transcendental knowledge, then why others are given in the first place? The others are given as a test. If we are getting attracted to karma kanda, that means our consciousness has not gone beyond material motivations. So our consciousness is very lowly. Therefore, we are getting attracted. And if one is getting attracted to the pure message of Bhagavata, that means we are, our consciousness is getting elevated somewhat, going towards Sattva and Shuddha Sattva. So this is a test. We can test where we are landing up in. What appeals to us is where we are landing up in, basically. So therefore, the scriptures have given message as per different modes of people in different modes. As per the people in different modes. So now the whole point is that so for us it's like a test. We can have a test of what appeals to us. If somebody say, okay, Bhagavatam doesn't appeal to me, but some Nyaya Shastra appeals, some Manu Samhita appeals, that means uh, there are a lot of material threads inside, and that's why that message is fitting in. So when thread mismatch happens, that means we have to elevate our consciousness, not that we have to get fitted into that same screw. That basically means one has to change one screw of the heart and the mind. And that Srila Prabhupada explains primarily happens by the association of a greatly surrendered devotee of the Lord. How great? That such a person should not be disturbed by any kind of material flux, material tabernacle. So the spiritual knowledge, the transcendental knowledge, the holy name and the holy glories of the Lord are like a diamond. Kanchanvan Vishmatam Ratna Nami. But our unfortunate situation in the conditioned stage is to consider this, to see and interpret this diamond as some broken glass, some lump of glass. We see that's unfortunate. So, spiritual life is not about taking what suits us, but spiritual life is about molding and making ourselves suitable to be recruited in the spiritual world.
Almost 4 years back, I joined a class in Krisacharya and there reading the verse from I think first kind of Bhagavatam where it is describing the qualities of the Pandavas, what make them special because they are moldable, they mold their ways. So those who are rigid, it's not a good sign to mold.
Yes, we should mold our lives.
For the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. We want Guru and Krishna to mold themselves for our sensual pleasure.
So that is why the bhakti cannot be practiced in a comfort zone. Because when comforts are prominent, then one is not having any fervor to change oneself. And unless we change ourselves, there is no question of transformation. Just like, say for example, food. So one can get a benefit of food when one eats it. If one just sees the food and takes photograph and goes away, then one has not got any benefit of food, any benefit of prasad. The prasadam feast is there, but one simply just looks at it, takes a photograph and goes away. Doesn't take it, doesn't honor it. Then one will not be able to see the effect. Similarly, the The temples and holy places are there, but unless one goes and spends time, one will not get benefit. Similarly, spends time worshipping. The Prabhupada is explaining one of the best ways by which we can worship the Lord is by hearing about the glories of the Lord from those who are understood. Now, similarly, holy days come, but a holy day is not by default holy for us. A holy day will become holy only when we embark on a holy activity on the holy day. By default, it is not holy for us. But it starts becoming holy when we start giving time and utilizing that time and channelizing our energy to offer service to the Lord, to make an offering of for the Lord's pleasure. So only when we do that, when we stretch ourselves to make an offering for the Lord's pleasure, then we are tapping the benefit of the holiday. Otherwise, holiday will come and go. Yes. Yeah, holiday becomes holiday. That's it. So the benefit of anything we can derive, anything spiritual we can derive only when we change ourselves, change our routine to make space for it, give importance to it, and utilize that opportunity to offer a service to the Lord. So similarly, we can only take benefit of the association of great souls when we hear attentively and we follow. So the Bhagavatam explains the human form of life is like a boat, and the spiritual master is the captain of the boat giving directions. If we follow the directions, we'll be able to reach back to Godhead. One doesn't follow the direction, the boat is in the ocean, we will not reach anywhere. And then it is said that the direction of the Vedas are like the favorable breezes. The favorable breeze will also act only when if we are moving. If one is not moving the boat only, whatever favorable breezes come, it will not make any difference. That is the point. So favorable breezes will only make sense when one is moving and moving towards Krishna. That is the point. So therefore, yes.
Because Bhatyashra Maharaj gave a Bhagavatam class in Newtown. Somebody asked about कि हम चैंटिंग भी कर रहे हैं, रीडिंग भी कर रहे हैं, मंदिर भी आ रहे हैं, और क्या करें मतलब, हाँ और क्या करना चाहिए, हाँ कि बिल्कुल का पास नहीं बोल रहे थे कि साधु संघ का थोड़ा महाराज बोले साधु संघ है to follow sadhu, to follow the instruction. नहीं तो जब बात ही नहीं मान रहे गुरु मुख पद्म तो then there is no संघ, and that is अवतार सारा गौर अवतार, हाँ कौरी निरवासा
Yeah. So therefore, we have to understand now when we say that that I need to mold myself, not that the Godhead will fit according to my screws and my threads, but I need to mold myself, and therefore I need to change myself. Not that the whole divinity should change for me. Then we are not making spiritual advancement. So therefore, that verse is there that Saiva Gokhara. What is that? Dharmastanishita Purusha. Vishwaksena Katha. Motpadye Didiratim Shamayave Kevalam. This is another verse, but Notpadye Didiratim Shama Evahi Kevalam. So if that attraction for Krishna is not developing, then all that endeavor is futile. Now we have heard that okay, demigod worship concept is introduced for those who are very strongly attached to the material pleasure, and they won't accept Krishna consciousness or religion in any way unless their hook attachment is supplied, and therefore the various demigods are basically supplying various hooks of people so that maybe there is some chance at least they are coming under the Vedic realm and all that. So this we have heard. But we have to understand what this basically means. If somebody is very madly and badly hooked and one is not budging and one is not taking to religion at all, So such a person, the injunction is given, okay, you can worship this demigod. By virtue of the demigod, that hook of stubbornness is a bit removed because one gets the supply one wants. Now, when one gets the supply one wants, then one is in an unhooked condition. At that point of time, one is in an awakened condition. So when one is in an awakened condition, then one is supposed to catch a higher message and move forward. But instead of catching the higher message and move forward, one keeps clinging on to the principle of demigod worship. Then that is going to reinforce one's book. No, it won't. That's going to reinforce one. So one basically, uh, when we say that okay, by getting the fulfillment what demigod worship is giving, one develops faith in the Vedas. But then the Vedas are giving the higher message of pure devotional service. So one comes to the position of uh, so okay, I wanted this, I had a hook, but then okay, Krishna supplied me that hook. Now let me worship Krishna heartily. So this is basically what should be the implication. Not that okay, Godhead means this lane only where my desires are getting. So that clinging on will reinforce the entire message. So we have to understand the purpose. All the variegatedness of demigod worship is simply for the purpose of unhooking ourselves. Okay, one who is hooked can get unhooked, so that we can get pulled up or attracted towards the message of pure devotional service. But one who is clinging on, such a person is described as Kamistastaritajnana 720. But because of lust, his intelligence is lost. And so who is worshipping? What worshipping? Because of lust, his intelligence is lost. What is worshipping? And everybody in this mental world is worshipping somebody or someone or the else. Without worship, nothing comes. Do we not worship our boss in the company? A materialistic person worships a woman. No, opposite gender. Everybody is worshipping someone or the other. Because the living entity is so tiny, so tiny, so tiny that forget about spiritual needs. Even the material needs of the living entity cannot be supplied by the living entity himself or herself. So the living entity has to depend on others. And when you have to depend on others, you have to worship them. Then only the supply will be released. That is the currency, worship. So to get anything, to get everything, one has to worship somebody or the other. And therefore, whom we are worshipping and for what we are worshipping, that to a certain is very important. That's why Prabhupada is quoting this verse. Yanti Deva Vata Deva. But you worship ghosts and spirits, and you will become ghosts and spirits and go with them to get their associations. You worship Pitras, you'll go to the Pitra Loka. You get their association. But if you worship me, not just saying it, not really. So therefore, just the idea that I am doing some sort of worship, I am doing some sort of spirituality is not sufficient. In fact, this idea that okay, I am also doing some worship, I am also doing some spirituality, This idea does not even take one to the level of transcendence because every materialist is worshipping somebody or the other, whoever they feel can provide this sense gratification, they're worshipping them. Therefore, whom we are worshipping and for what purpose is very important. And that is why our attitude has to change. This is the very meaning of changing our school. Our attitude has to change. Therefore, mental speculation and concoction does not go good. That's why Prabhupada is quoting. You see, when Arjuna was present, that time people are not following. The Lord had to re-establish the parampara because mental concoction will not lead us anywhere. That is why you see, Srila Prabhupada is so elaborately explaining that worshipping demigod and worshipping Krishna are not the same. Krishna is aham sarvasya prabhava matta smritir pravartate. Iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava sambuddha. The demigod, the Krishna explains the demigod, the great sages, no one can understand me.
Even Shanidev becomes very happy when we become obedient to someone.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing. Even for Ramketu also, somebody is recently telling me like, that was the good one. That if you are following Guru, then only the demonic planets will not affect you. Otherwise, Ramaketu will cause such an influence that person will become atheistic and have non. That's why we should follow four regulative principles because eating non-veg, illicit sex life, intoxication, these are all asuric tendencies. So we are under the effect of Rahu and Ketu. And Shanidev, Shanidev is not like Rahu and Ketu. Shanidev makes us repentant for our bad activities. So if we are really repentant and start following Guru and Krishna, Shanidev becomes very happy.
Yeah. So, yeah, so that's why the Shastras explain that one when seriously starts practicing. See, if we approach the demigods for these material assets, it is a cumbersome path, and the demigods may just not do the needful. But if we are worshipping Krishna heartily, the demigods will bless us, even though we may not have asked for them. The Prachetas went for search of Lord Vishnu. They happened to be roaming around in the gardens of Kailash. They were not knowing where they have reached. They were just roaming around. But Lord Shiva was so pleased and happy seeing their attitude of bhakti towards Lord Vishnu that he came and he offered his blessings. And he gave them mantra also, and he gave them glories of Supreme Lord Krishna. They never asked for Lord Shiva to come. They never invited Lord Shiva in that sense. They never came to meet Lord Shiva. They were searching for a suitable place for their Vishnu worship. Lord Shiva became so pleased. Why? Because they were trying to practice devotion also. So therefore, unmotivated. And that is why it is explained that one will only be able to follow If one has faith, and one will only have faith if one gives up material desire. So sense control and giving up a material desire is very important, because only by that we are changing our screws, and only when our screws are changed, the threads are changed, then only the transcendental message will fit in. Fit in means it will hit us. It will stay with us in our heart. Otherwise, only sense gratification will stay with us in our heart. So that is why it is said that, you see, one cannot be a genuine disciple unless one controls one's senses and mind. To be able to, and this thing is spoken in other words by that, unless one has sense and mind control, one cannot develop faith. Same. Because only with one is faith, one can follow. The readiness to follow is called as faith, nothing else. So unless one is controlled in one's mind and sense, can one can one follow the injunctions of the Shastras?
That's the very basic for any yoga system. Prabhupada has written in one of the purports in Bhagavad Gita, without brahmacharya, nobody can make any advancement in spiritual life.
Yes.
Even for Ashtanga yoga, also that yam, niyam, shama, dama.
Yes.
And even austerity taught by Krishna for the body in 17.14.
Yes.
Devajuja Guru Pragya Pujanam Shocham Arjavam Brahmacharya Ahimsa Cha Shariram Tapuskyati. So that was very basic. The person who has received the human body must follow Guru Krishna.
Yes. Jai Shri Srimati Chand, Gauchand Bhavan. Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Gurudev Sudhar Maharani Sudarshan Maharaj Shri Prabhupada. Ki Jai. So probably in that 1714 it is said Dev Guru Pragya Pujanam. Pujanam is not offering big garland, flattering. No, Pujanam means we are genuinely respect. We genuinely respect a person. It's not just pancha ka tarunte. Then you follow what they say. Yes. That is the meaning of showing respect, either to parents or to superiors or to guru. Then Shaucham, external and internal cleanliness, that is not possible without sense control. Yes. And then Arjavam, simplicity. Krishna has got in the very beginning only. Oh, simplicity will not take you anywhere. You will be in a very bad situation if you are duplicity. Yeah. And then Krishna is saying Brahmacharya. Follow this austerity. Ahimsa. Austerity is for Sharira. And Krishna is telling in Bhagavad Gita, then all the scriptures, actually, Vyasudeva is Krishna's expansion. So and again, Krishna is telling us, you are in human body, control yourself, be well, behave yourself. Yes, 17, 14 years, behave yourself. Yes, what else to follow? So, this is their name, the yoga system. So, Prabhupada is making this point here. Okay, let's stop here for today. Translation